welcome! I'm starting today's video here by my compost bins. Now I make very slow compost, no flipping and turning and mixing. I just keep adding stuff on top, usually for about a year, and then leave it and move on to the next bin and start putting things in that one. When my second bin's full, I'm ready to go back to the first one and start using that lovely compost. Now I actually tend to use 2 bins a season, so I've got 4 bins here, 3 you can see easily, and there's 1 at the back. So I'll do 2 and 2, and when the 4th bin's full, I'm ready to start emptying the first set of bins I filled up. Now something has been digging in this recently. I suspect a rat. But they've pulled out all this lovely ready-made compost from the bottom. So I'm going to bag this up into bags. 1, it makes it easy to move around, and 2, I'm not exactly sure where I want to use it yet. So if I just put it into old compost bags, I can pop it in the shed for storage, and when I need some compost, it will be there ready to go. It also means I can empty these first 2 bins to give me somewhere to start putting this year's compost. So as well as clearing up this dugout mess, I will dismantle and empty these 2 bins into bags as well, because they're ready to use. I'll be able to put my compost bins back together, and I'll have somewhere to start putting all my composting materials for this year. So taking a closer look at my specific compost bins, they come in 4 flat panels that have this zigzaggy edge that slots together. It also comes with a lid, but I personally very rarely put the lid on. I'm quite happy for the rain to get in and keep it moist, and any excess water is just going to drain naturally out of the bottom. Now I'm sure you can see from this one, I've got this white stripe here, the blue one up there, and this is actually washing line, and it has worked really well as a strengthener around the corners of these bins. As I've noticed with years of use, and even as a new bin, when they start getting really full of compost and it all starts decomposing and sinking into the bottom of the bin, there's a lot of pressure down here, and it starts bulging out and pushing and splitting. I forgot to mention these front, or not just the front panels, every single panel around the bin has this slidey up door at the bottom that you're supposed to use to access your compost when it's ready. You take off the door, you can shovel out your nice fresh compost from underneath and carry on filling from the top. But I don't generally bother with that unless I'm really desperate for a bit of compost. I've run out everywhere else. Put this out of the way. To empty this bin that's been sat here now for at least 2 years, I'm literally going to take the front panel off, because it's only full to compost now about here, as it's been doing its composting, getting munched by worms and broken down by all the microbes and bacteria. What was a full bulging bin has all compressed down into this small section at the bottom. Now this season, for the first time, I'm going to replace my piece of washing line that's helping strengthen the connections at the bottom of this bin with some wire. Now I've got a bigger roll of this somewhere. I'm going to have to go and track it down because I don't know where I've put it. The only disadvantage I found with using rope, string or washing line to strengthen these corners is the mice and rats are still inclined to chew on it and split my strengthening string. And once this is full of composting material, it's really difficult to re-thread this bottom string. Little bit of a close-up look at the top of the compost in this first bin. I've actually got some lemon balm growing in the corner here that seeded itself. It was growing out of the slots in the side of the bin last year, but I have plenty of lemon balm elsewhere. And there's a hole at the back. You can see something's been digging in there. So Mr. Rat has actually done me a great favour digging through this compost, because he's fluffed it up beautifully. I'm really happy with it. And yes, don't panic, I will wash my hands when I've finished. Rat's not the best position to be in. There we go. Oh, it's just so lovely. Just so beautiful. And free. Now you'll hear by the scraping of my spade, I actually have my compost bins set up on a concrete base. Now the base wasn't put down specifically for compost bins to go onto it. That's just the way things have worked out. I do rather like it though. It makes this sort of tidy up a lot easier. And whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. But I think it stops me losing all that lovely compost mixture into the soil underneath the bins. It all has to stay pretty much in this spot, unless the rats start digging it out, of course, which thankfully doesn't happen too often. Beautiful. Right, let's get this bagged up. Oh, there's some stuck on my lid. That as well. So what did I put into my bins to make this lovely compost? A great mixture of all sorts. The more variety, the better. Garden weeds, kitchen scraps, autumn leaves, some grass cuttings, but not too much. It can get very wet and slimy if you put too much in at once. Shredded paper and cardboard. Anything compostable you can get your hands on. I found I'm running short of bags to put the compost in, so I'm going to move the compost that's left in this bin. Bring myself round. So I'm just going to dig this out and put it into this end bin that's already half full of nice ready to use compost, and it can just store in there until I'm ready to use it or I'm desperate for an empty compost bin. But I do actually have 4 side panels and a lid spare to make another bin if I need to. I'm just not sure where I'd want to put it. So that's the plan. Empty what's left of this bin into there. So we can take its top string off. See how much we got left. That way, this way, this way, that way. Okay. That's not what you're supposed to do. They're meant to slide in and out, but it's off. Hello, little birdie. Oh, you got a big fat worm. Nice. String out of here. I can see where they've been digging. Well, you don't need to watch me shoveling compost from one compost bin into another, but I did find something interesting as I was digging through this pile of beautiful homemade compost. Found a nest. So whatever's been in here has been building a nest. I'll put that in the new compost to carry on decomposing. Shake it about, make sure there's nothing in there. Well, that was a cosy winter home for them. No sign of any babies though, so that's quite good as far as I'm concerned. I recognise the nesting material. It's all the dried stems from the nasturtium plants that were growing out of these compost bins last year.
so they didn't have to travel very far for their nesting material.
So here we have it, one empty compost bay, ready to be rebuilt and put back in to fill with more compost or more composting material. I didn't actually have to dismantle this one completely, I just took its front panel off to drag it back into place, which is rather nice. In fact, I'm going to leave it pushed back a moment. Put the front panel on, wrap my wire around and then push the whole thing back into place. Hello Mr. Worm, can't do much there. There you go. Something you may or may not have noticed from camera distance, there really aren't very many worms in this compost because there's nothing left for them to eat. They've eaten it all already. So they've moved in through the slots and things in the other bins to where there is a decent food source for them. They've done their job and munched their way through all that organic material and turned it into lovely worm castings that are now my compost.
So next I'm threading myself that wire around the bottom to help secure it and pushing it back into place. It's work to treat. And last of all, wriggling that front hatch back into position. It was a bit of a fiddle, I have to say, but I got there in the end.
I definitely don't think I've got my wire quite as tight as I normally do if I'm using string or washing line to secure it together. Oh, and I've forgotten to do my top row. I'll get that done. I think I'll still do this with washing line at the top. It's less likely to get chewed up here, and even if it does, it's easy to access and replace it with a new piece. It's this bottom layer that's more difficult. It's also this bottom layer that gets all the pressure as the compost starts composting and compacting down and pushing out at the sides. So there we go, job done. A nice new empty bin ready to fill with compost.